This is the Flabbergasted Podcast, where we just can't believe you haven't seen it. Every episode, we discuss a movie that one of us has seen and the other hasn't. Follow us on Instagram at FlabberPod and subscribe in your podcast app of choice. I'm your host, Rogge. Let's get to it. Today, I'm joined by a special guest, my friend, Betsey Vassbinder.
Hello.
Hi, that is probably one of the first and last times you've ever heard me call you Betsey as opposed to Vasti, right?
It's true. Yep. Happy to be here, Rogge. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, we're very excited today to discuss the, 1992 movie?
It is the 1992 Muppet version of The Christmas Carol. IMDb categorizes it as a comedy, drama, family film.
Which is crazy. Is musical not an option? Is Christmas movie not an option?
In
IMDb?
my mind, it's like the musical for Christmas. I don't know how you could skip that category, but yep. We are going to discuss the Muppets presenting their own touching rendition of Charles Dickens' classic tale.
Wow. It is definitely a rendition. I think I agree with touching even.
Happy to hear that.
Spoiler alert for my response to watching Muppet Christmas Carol last night.
That's one of the things I'm most curious about is if you were as appropriately moved as you should have been by the entire experience. I kind of wish I could have watched it with you, but that's what this conversation is for.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll definitely hit on that. So this is, you think of this as the musical Christmas movie. I mean, there's people that would say claymation, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is what that's called, right?
Right. There are so many, and we make a list and watch through the classics every year, right? You're going to watch the Dahu Dore, original Dr. Seuss.
The Grinch,
yeah. You're going to, and you're going to love it. But in my opinion, those are all good to watch at the holiday season. Never a bad time to watch one of those classics, but it isn't Christmas until we have seen this movie. Fun fact for Rogge, especially because he knows my husband, Micah, when we go on road trips together, even if it's not necessarily around Christmas time, if there's some downtime in the vehicle where it's getting a little boring, we will just sing this soundtrack.
Wow.
We might play it in the background. We might just sing it a cappella. We just love the song so much. This is such a part of our family Christmas as the Vassbinders.
That's so interesting. I definitely enjoyed the songs. The first couple, I wouldn't say that I remember any of the lyrics. They were kind of just generically.
The first couple are the two best.
No. Oh, I disagree with that. Okay. It's good to have some friction because I firmly have a song that is my favorite and it's not close for me.
Okay. What?
So, yeah, it was just kind of like generically Happy Christmas, but nothing that I was like, I'm going to remember where I was when I first heard this Christmas song. That's fun.
Okay. That might be where we are not appreciating it because open scene, I would say this is just the visuals. You've got the sky and you're panning down into the old timey London.
I have lots of thoughts about the panning over the gingerbread house.
Yes.
Like obviously minis. Like we're not in London. We're not in a real city. No. We're clearly going over like minis that weren't meant to look photorealistic, right? It's not like a Lord of the Rings minis where you're like, are using it because you can't actually build Helm's Deep. You're doing it to make it look like a Muppety or Dickens
very
London.
Cutesy.
Yes.
That background, we'll see how well I can do a trumpet here, but like, that's going, and I feel I'm instantly transported to Christmas time. Like, okay, we're here.
Is this something that you watch on like the 21st, or is it on the 25th, or is it just sometime once December starts feeling Christmassy enough?
That is just down to scheduling, right? Okay. As a family, we'll watch it whenever it makes sense for us to sit down and do it. But it feels like a capital M moment when we're like, okay, today's the day. Okay. We're going to sit, we're going to watch the Muppet Christmas Carol, and it's our one time we watch it the whole Christmas season.
Right. You don't want it to lose that joy. You want it to be an event.
It's special.
Right. Absolutely. It's kind of on par with the day you put up the Christmas tree and decorate it. And those are, I guess, the big like pre-Christmas events, right? Trying to think what else other kind of traditions people have. Maybe going caroling or like the work Christmas party that people do.
Right. We have a whole bunch of holiday baking, but to me, that's not assigned one day. You know, you can have gingerbread cookies anytime in the season. But Muppet Day is more along the lines of putting up a tree.
Absolutely. That's awesome. We do It's a Wonderful Life on Christmas Eve.
Oh, that's sweet.
And so it's definitely Christmas before that. Like that doesn't like signal, something to me. It's just more of a tradition. And like, I feel like watching that movie on that date because that's what we've been doing for years. Yeah.
Gotcha.
That's our big one. So yeah, we've talked about that opening pan. My note was panning over the minis of London during the intro credits is so good. I want to eat it for some reason. It's a little like Gumby clay sort of gingerbread house-y, like fondant over like not actually edible roofing. Not totally, but like it's almost there.
Yes, it's an edible movie. No matter where you are when you're watching it, you just feel like maybe there's the scent of gentle cloves wafting up towards you. That might be happening as I'm watching this.
I'm not getting cloves in the beginning because for me it's all about like cold London, and then you get Mean Scrooge early on. So I'm just thinking cold and coal and like human waste probably. I mean, I'm just thinking like Dickensian London sort of. Yes,
I did like filth, how they made Muppet cutesy blend with Dickensian London. Very, very true. So cold and dark and Scrooge enters the scene. That's one of the best songs right there. Okay. Is the Ebenezer Scrooge song.
Oh, the Mr. Yeah, they're talking about
Here comes Mr. Humbug.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
So you enjoyed that?
I'm hearing it. Yeah. So my notes about that are less the song and more like I'm in a Muppet movie. Like I didn't grow up. So I'm actually going to say contradictory things almost. We had one of those houses where we didn't have a DVD player. Actually, when did DVDs come out? We weren't that late on it, but we had VHSs. We were always watching VHS on the VCR, but we only owned like 5. Some people had like Walls and Walls and all the Disney and all that stuff. Yeah. We had like these are the movies of my childhood because they're the canonical ones that we had. And we would just watch over and over again. We had a VeggieTales Day on the Lion's Den. We had Lion King. That's the one Disney that we did have. We have insanely Grease. You know how many times I watched Grease between the ages of like 4 and 7? A lot of times. Wow. So many.
There's a lot of inappropriate language
It's
in Grease.
entirely about sex, as it turns out, watching it as an adult, which I still do. And it's very important to me. I love the movie, but like a wild choice. And we had Muppet Treasure Island.
Yes.
A movie I've watched dozens of times. And so that like bobbing back in that same Muppet bob where they're doing the 1, 2 and 1, 2, they're going side to side. I felt very at home at that. And like, I recognized what's happening. Cause you get like the early fourth wall breaking stuff too.
Yes.
And the narration, which is different in here. So it all just felt homey in a Muppety way for me.
Good. I think that's one difference between Muppet Treasure Island for me and Muppet Christmas Carol is for whatever reason, I didn't watch a lot of Muppet movies. There's scads of them. And I think those are the only 2 I've seen. Muppet Treasure Island, I have fond memories of because I saw it in my childhood. And I believe a lot of my positive reaction to it is I saw this as a kid. I kind of shaped a little bit of my childhood identity around it.
The songs are bops. They're bangers.
I would argue Muppet Christmas Carol, you could watch it anytime in your existence and you can appreciate it. You didn't have to see it as a kid to be like, okay, well, I only like this because I first saw it when I
wonder
was
how
8.
we can test this. We need to find someone that hasn't seen Muppet Treasure Island as an adult and like jump them into it and be like, is this objectively good or do I just think it's good because I'm incapable of not thinking it's good?
We go to trivia every week with someone who has not seen Muppet Treasure Island.
But he doesn't like oh, yes. Okay. Spoiler alert for Austin Rovenstein. It's going to have to be, he's going to make me watch a Batman movie. So I've never seen a Batman movie that wasn't directed by Christopher Nolan. Like anything, the George Clooney, Michael Keaton, Val Kilmer, the Adam West, all the old Batmans. I've never seen anything with any of them.
I love it. You watch a Batman, he watches Muppet Treasure Island, you get him on the pod.
He's just going to be like, this was a children's movie and I was upset to my core about the fact that I was watching a children's movie.
I love it. It's just a different vibe. Yeah. You know, the people who appreciate dry humor will love that episode.
There's dry. I think it's like, I watch episodes. Sometimes you'll go back and watch SpongeBob and people are like, that's just a little kid show. Like it's just stupid and fart humor. I'm like, I disagree. There are like jokes that are like humorous. SpongeBob is witty at times. And I think that's the case with stuff in Muppet Treasure Island. Not that this is a Muppet Treasure Island podcast. But
yes, I think some of that is in Muppet Christmas Carol as well. I was curious how you thought it balanced enjoyment for adults. You know, you have the gonzo narrator talking about Charles Dickens was a 19th century novelist. He was a genius. And then the humor for the kids. You've got Rizzo the rat is falling in a bucket of ice and freezing, you know, and basically every bad luck that befalls Rizzo is in there for the children to laugh at. How did you think it did with Can Everyone of Every Age Enjoy This?
So that's an early bullet point that I have, which is that I saw Gonzo come in as narrator. I'm like, okay, well, this could go either way for me. I end up being fine with it. He plays it super straight, which is like weird for Gonzo, I feel like. It would have made almost more sense to me to switch the Gonzo and Kermit roles. Gonzo maybe can't quite pull at the heartstrings the way the late like Cratchit family stuff does that Kermit does.
Right. And wasn't Jim Henson the voice of Kermit?
I didn't know if that was Jim Henson or Frank Oz.
Okay.
I'm not an expert on some of this stuff. So yeah,
I'm
you're
not
welcome
either, so let's
to look
give that
it
a
up
quick
here.
Google.
Usually we'd have producer Jeremy off at the sides, like waving his phone at us or airdropping me something for some reason. So my note was that I ended up being fine with Gonzo. I think he does a good job. I could do with like 15 to 20% less Rizzo. I'm familiar with Rizzo, right? Like we said, I've seen Muppet Treasure Island. I know what his shtick is. He's fallen off of stuff.
Yes.
He's in this one, he's freezes, it catches on fire, and he's wet and all kinds of stuff. And I think it's fine. I'm not a slapstick, necessarily, but there is something about when Muppets do it that I'm a little more interested. So it's not enough to anything like just turn me off or like ruin the movie for me.
Good. Yeah. I did give it a quick Google. Jim Henson did voice Kermit until he passed in 1990, and this movie was made in 1992. And that's part of what kicks off the emotions for me. Is the first thing you see on the screen is in loving memory of Jim Henson and another. Yeah. I apologize, I don't remember his name, but another guy who did some of the voices. So I wonder if that's part of it. You have to let the heartstring character be played by Kermit when you're trying to, in honor of Jim Henson.
Because I think I have a whole note that's like, is there going to be enough Kermit in this movie? I mean, it's a Muppet movie, though Kermit doesn't come in until a third of the way through Muppet Treasure Island. It's not always like he has to be the main character that's on the screen all the time, which I think is interesting handling, right? As opposed to Mickey Mouse is in every scene of a Mickey Mouse film, or, the Mario movie I didn't see, but I'm sure was all Mario on the screen at all times. You get your characters who are always on the screen, and Kermit's not that way.
I would probably enjoy a Muppet Christmas Carol where Kermit plays Scrooge.
Sure.
He could do that role. I mean, obviously in this movie, Michael Caine is a treasure. You don't want to replace him.
I want to look and see if he won Best Actor, because he should have if he didn't.
Worthy.
He was absolutely dealing. Not for no reason. I mean, like, you're acting, he's trying to do a good job, but like, it's him and a bunch of puppets and just the emotions on his face. I mean, that's most of my notes are just me being like, Michael Caine in this scene. Michael Caine. Yes. Wow. What?
Oh, it's singing. So good. I buy the change of heart in his singing.
Absolutely. So that stuff is really good. I talk about the Muppet Bob dance Bob, I think. I love in Muppet movies how it's just not addressed that people that live side by side, some of them are Muppets and some of them are humans, and it's fine. Yeah. On the street, beggars can be either one, vendors, a human employs a Muppet employs a human later on in the Fozzie stuff.
No rules.
It is, but also vegetables can be Muppets.
Yeah.
Muppets are both inanimate objects and animated and character objects.
Sometimes the fruit is just fruit in a bowl. Sometimes the vegetables are singing to you. Yeah.
You're on your toes about the sentience of everything in this world, but it's not addressed. It's never like, oh, it's another Muppet, or like his nephew Fred could have been a Muppet.
He could have been.
He absolutely could have been a Muppet.
Very true.
Could have been one of just the generic like kid type Muppets.
Right at the party,
but it was fine that it was a person.
At the party that Fred hosts, it's like half human, half Muppet.
Yes.
Friends have been invited.
Absolutely.
Not that any of them themselves are half human, half Muppet, but half of the people at the party are human, half of the people at the party are Muppets. So have you seen
the Jason Segel Muppet movie, the Muppet movie?
No.
From 2011 or whatever?
No.
Ooh, it's very good.
I've seen interviews where Jason talks about it, and those are hilarious, but I haven't watched the actual
there's a whole song where he's having to decide, am I half man, half Muppet, or am I a manly Muppet or a Muppet of a man? And that's about as close as it gets. And so then at one point it pans to a Muppet version of Jason Segel. So yeah, that's pretty much what being half and half looks like, I think.
See, now I have to watch that.
I guess you could also get like a centaur situation, top half man, bottom half Muppet or something. Good. I don't know which one of those is more terrifying.
That's a lot of weight. Yeah. That's a torso of a human man on Muppet legs.
Yeah, that's probably too much. But then it's creepy the other way too.
It's creepy, yeah.
So I'm noticing I'm not the world's most familiar. I mean, obviously I've seen multiple iterations of the Christmas Carol. I know I've seen on Wagon Wheel. I know the plot and all that stuff. This, I felt like the early Scrooge that we get, he's yellier almost. He has more employees and is more iron fisted and less. I think the Scrooges I'm used to are just reclusive and miserly, and he's more actively like getting up in people's business and mean to them early on.
More heinous, more malicious. Yeah. Okay. Interesting observation.
Yeah. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but that was just kind of a difference I noticed between him and other Scrooges that I might have been familiar with in the past.
Yeah, you're right. It seems like the Scrooge in some of the other versions is a quiet, introspective outcast, but I don't really mean introspective in a positive way. He sort of obsesses too much over
reclusive, like a narcissistic. And this Scrooge, I think might be a little more taken aback by things like his nephew Fred doesn't really like him. And the wife Clara, like they make fun of him at the party. And I think he's genuinely surprised, like, they're not enjoying the ambiance I bring to a room with me. Yeah, he talks about, well, I mean, I think we'll get to some of that stuff, but that's the first thing I noticed is that they really hit hard on this guy is mean and bad, but more mean, I think, than the Scrooges I'm used to, because he starts to turn really early. I think, like in the Christmas Past, he softens. He starts softening quickly. And so they have to establish him hard as mean at the beginning, so that way he has somewhere to go, I think.
Is part of that it being aimed at children?
Might be.
You already want him seeing children in his past to, I mean, those are the scenes that kids are going to relate to. Yeah, the kids at school weren't always nice to me, kind of I felt like a loner. You want him to have a soft heart towards childhood memories if you want kids watching it.
I think there's also pacing, right? I mean, this is 90 minutes. It's not a 2.5 hour, like real deep dive into, I think there's other versions where he has a best friend who maybe ends up marrying the girl or something. And it could be like Mandela affecting that. I don't know if that is actually 100% accurate, but
did that happen?
I think there's probably some where you get more scenes with that fiance girlfriend, right?
Yes. Okay. So question, which version did you watch?
What?
Yep. So, Bella, right?
Okay.
Or Belle.
Is that her name? I didn't write it down. The only name I write down are the names of Muppets and Michael Caine.
So Scrooge's fiance.
Okay.
When they get to their scene where they're outside and she's explaining to him, why are we waiting? And he says, come on, I love you. And she walks away sadly and says, you did once. Did your scene end there?
Yes. I think, okay, where's my note here?
And Rizzo's crying.
Oh, I wrote this exactly. I love you, Belle. And then you did once, and then there's just no response, which I thought was insane. Like to not even like snarkily bite back. I mean, to show his dissent, but just for her to walk away. I'm like, what are we doing, Michael Caine?
It's because a whole song gets cut there.
Really?
So you've not heard it yet.
No.
They sampled it on an audience and it was deemed too sad for a children's movie.
Wow.
She sings a whole song called The Love Is Gone.
Okay.
So right there when she says you did once, the music swells. She sings her whole song about how much they had together and how he's throwing it away for the pursuit of money and all the love they had is gone. And so whenever we watch it with my in-laws as well, my mother-in-law cries every single time at that song. She can't help it. I mean, same response Rizzo has. And you have to, I forget what it is, if it's a theatrical version or what, but you have to choose at the beginning with the DVD. And if you choose the wrong one, you miss that song entirely.
We were just on Disney Plus and I just clicked. It didn't seem like it gave me options, but maybe I wasn't looking hard enough.
No, I think you're right. I think the Disney Plus version, because we own a DVD copy and we watch the Disney Plus, it doesn't give you a choice. Okay. So you saw
I wouldn't have known.
Disney Plus didn't trust you
with
the sad song.
Yeah. Because there's a point at which Rizzo's like, is this too scary for a kid's movie? And Gonzo's like, it's culture, which I like. It's like kids can handle some scariness and it's fine.
Right.
That kind of goes hand in hand with that.
I have wondered, as I've watched various versions of Christmas Carol, have you read the book?
I think we did like in middle school.
Okay.
I think in 8th grade we did, but I don't have a lot of specific recollection about it.
It's definitely one in my mind I played up as like this difficult to read classic. And then whenever I hear people talking about it and I think, oh, it's been a while, I should read it. I'll reread it and think that's surprisingly readable.
Yeah.
Dickens wrote in a way that we can understand now. It's not Shakespeare. Well, there are two characters in that book that I have
Shakespeare taking shots on this podcast.
Yeah, sorry.
You heard it here first, guys.
Ignorance and want show up in the book, right? These two shabby little impoverished children. And the narrator in the book calls one ignorance and one want, and like, oh no, here they come. This is something we have to watch out for, is if you get too much of this in a society, you're struggling.
Yeah.
And they don't appear in any of these Christmas carols. I don't think they're in the Jim Carrey version, any of that. I'm not sure if you can do ignorance and want in a Muppet movie.
No.
I think you could in a children's movie if you maybe did it Pixar.
Okay.
You know, a la Inside Out, when they can represent every emotion. I bet if you let the folks at Pixar loose on that concept, they could present it to children. But I think a Muppet, you could do it and it would be too hard to see.
What are the names of the little demonettes from Hercules? You know what I'm talking about? The ones that try to...
The little pink one and the little blue one?
Yeah, and they're bantering and they've got the hype, and they're the ones that feed him the bottle, and they turn into kids and stuff sometimes.
Maybe Groob or something.
I think they're named after like Vice. They're like Pain and Panic. I think are their names.
There it is.
That's about the closest parallel that I could draw to trying to do something like that in like a cutesified, bantery way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. In the cartoon, you can make it cutesy. I think with a Muppet, you'd have to have an actual impoverished looking.
Oh, so sad.
Skinny, frail, shabbily dressed. Like,
little bunny boy was about as close as they get.
Bunny.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we want to jump straight to the bunny's arc there?
Sure. I mean, we see Bunny early on. He is Good King Wenceslas.
Yes. And isn't that the great song too?
Yes. It's the perfect caroling song. Other than He Will Become a Wassailing. Those are the only two good, really like caroling specific songs for me.
Yes.
And he does the thing where Scrooge like kicks him out and is rude to him, and Scrooge opens the door back up, and you see the bunny's face go, he's realized the error of his ways, just like in that little look in his eyes. It turns around and gets smoked with a wreath. An active Scrooge. He's not as old as maybe I'm picturing too. He's a Scrooge with some vigor in his anger.
It's true. He nails him with the wreath, and it looks like a real shot too, with Michael Caine actually throwing it.
Yeah.
One of the most heartbreaking characters. When you see him shivering in the cold, that is a real matchstick girl moment.
I expected a different Muppet to come and put a blanket on him just because it was going to be too sad for a Muppet movie. And it's like, nope. Sometimes people are really cold because we do not house them.
Sometimes it's awful. Yeah. So that is one where I really appreciated that the people who made it weren't just using any old cute Muppet for every role. They bring back that boy at the end to be the one who buys the turkey, who gets to participate in the meal. You just get this sense at the end. I bet he was warm and well fed every day after that.
Oh, yeah.
I hope.
That's your headcanon.
I let myself feel that.
Yeah. Okay, I want to make sure if there's anything else I'm missing. We talked about people and Muppets living interchangeably. I do, just as a quick thing, before we get into the first ghosts, we're going to run. I was like, it'll be under an hour. Before we to the first ghosts, there's the scene where Kermit and the rats are negotiating for one day off, Christmas Day.
Yes.
And I'm like, this is why the union movement had to happen in the late 19th century, because you cannot have Kermit and some rats negotiating against Scrooge to get one day off. The leverage is just so off here that they're also scared of him, and they have to have their jobs, and it's winter and things are cold, and they have no real leverage as far as like striking or something. So this is why collective bargaining is important, folks.
It is.
This is a pro collective bargaining podcast. It's the heart of the movie,
really.
Yeah, it keeps coming back to that theme, right? Maybe I'm just in a particularly socialist mood today. It's so pleasant. Watching Kermit sing non-denominationally about Christmas and just being Kermit, I think, is pleasant. We're just running through my notes. We talked about putting Gonzo in the narrator role. So I do think that right before the Marley ghosts show up, which are perfect as the old men.
Yes.
That's their lane in a Muppet Christmas movie.
I love that they make fun of him and laugh in that song, because as a kid in any version, I was always up in knots waiting for that scene, because you know it's at the beginning, you know it's scary and it's going to be hard. And even as a kid, I was still afraid of that scene just because it's Ghost.
Yeah.
And I think that's the best way to do it. Have these two funny guys, sure they're ghosts, but as soon as they start talking, you're laughing.
And it somehow just it dovetails so nicely with the existing Muppet universe, where that's what these guys do, is they sit up there and they heckle. And so they don't even need to, it's totally believable that that's what those guys would be doing. And if you've seen anything Muppet, it just, that's what these guys are doing. Of course, it fits right in.
Right.
Yeah. I do think they do a really good job in these scenes where Scrooge goes home. It is really showing the extent to which he is a man that has a lot of money, but denies himself any of the joys or trappings of that wealth on a daily basis for no reason.
No carriage ride home. It's on foot in the cold.
No, at least you don't have the one kind of old mean maid that made him a sandwich or anything.
Nothing.
It's just him by himself eating like hard cheese and bread that he probably got day old from the bakery down the street.
Yeah,
and so
in the dark.
Yeah, he has a couple of nice, he has like a nice suit or something, and even the curtains it mentioned were kind of knock off.
Cheap damask.
I mean, his bed might have been comfortable. It looked the 4-post bed looked fairly nice, but he has this big house, and it's just so sad the way he's let that desire for the accumulation of money and not at least, gauche privileges that money can give you. He's not letting that warm any even greedy. It's he's not greedy. He just has to make money for the sake of doing so.
It's almost out of habit at this point. He's not getting anything out of that.
Right.
The pursuit of money is not serving him.
Yeah. It's so interesting. And it just struck me more with this Scrooge than a Scrooge McDuck swimming in his money pool sort of thing, who has a swimming pool full of money and has a nice house with servants and stuff.
If you enjoy swimming in money, you've got that.
Yeah.
Right.
But this Scrooge doesn't enjoy anything.
No.
There's no enjoyment. He just enjoys not enjoying things or something. And I noticed that it said Scrooge and Marley's, and I was like, why is there more than one Marley?
Yes.
And I was like, okay, this is why there's more than one Marley.
Because you have to have the funny old guys doing it together. You don't put one of those in the role.
Right. You'd be like, where this doesn't, that wouldn't work at all.
I appreciate that change.
Early on, I think you start to see Scrooge is a little fearful. He says something like, well, you guys were nice to people when you were alive. And they're like, no, we weren't. You're misremembering how things have gone, Scrooge.
Yes. Already trying to justify, wait, you couldn't have been that bad. I'm not that bad, right?
100%. So that's good. Is there anything else we want to hit kind of in those before we get to Christmas Past?
No, we can jump into the ghosts.
Let's jump ahead. He does, you got to hand it to Scrooge. Early on, he's like, okay, this is happening, and there's spirits, and there's some sort of I don't know if I would describe it as Dickensian or a Victorian age, sometimes there are spirits, but he's like, oh, spirit? I will fall if I jump out of the window. So, and he's like, oh, I'll take your hand. He says, okay, spirit. He's not happy about what's happening, but he's like, oh, I'm in one of those spirit situations. I have to do this. I have to, he's polite to them. He's not rude to the spirits.
I'm not surprised. I'm disappointed, but I'm not surprised.
Yeah. He's not. And even if surprised, not shocked, not disbelieving at any point.
No. Oh, sure. A spirit. Okay. Yeah. Not glad you're here. But if you tell me to take your hand, I'm buying it.
The number of times he says, oh, spirit, and asks them a question in a way that is surprisingly polite for a Scrooge character that can sometimes
differential.
Be. Yeah.
You're going to know. And
Scrooge
I don't.
can be acerbic and just really cutting to everyone he talks to, even in the memories, I think, in some versions. And this one, he's like, this is my close thing I have to a friend in this situation. So I'll be, like you said, deferential to him. I think it's kind of fun. Got to hand it to him a little bit for that. I didn't totally buy, I thought the kid stuff was fine. The kid stuff didn't hit me that much because he was really young to be saying, I need to use this time to stay in and work on my studies. Maybe as a weird 11-year-old, I get that. But at 7 or 8 in that very first one, it's I don't know. There had to be some sort of parental trauma. I needed something to kickstart that. Yes,
I think the childhood part is described very differently in each film version of A Christmas Carol. And I think it could use more details. That feels like a scene where things got cut. Yes. And you're sort of having to guess, wait, why was this child left here? He's not an orphan, right? He's not in an orphanage. He has a family. Where are they at the holidays? And you don't know. And it just moves on to, well, he's an adult now and he's graduating.
Yeah. And like, I guess this headmaster just had an outsized impact on his view of the world, who is saying like, you have to work so hard. No one will ever give you anything. Never be nice to anyone. Don't tip your carriage driver. And you're like, okay, I guess that's supposed to just be his Joker villain backstory. Like, and that's why he is Scrooge, is because this one large eagle said these things to him when he turned 18. Also, when he was 18, his voice was so high. Do you never notice this?
Yes, headmaster.
Yes, headmaster. He's like a borderline adult man. Like, right. It's insane.
I'm assuming this is high school graduation, or at least 18. You know, yeah.
I thought his voice sounded weird at that point.
What was your reaction to "It is the American way"?
Yeah, that all I'm thinking about is him as the first mate in Muppet Christmas in Muppet Treasure Island, which when he's like, "This is what we shall do now." Yeah, like, yeah. I mean, it was fun. Yeah, it wasn't a huge reaction for me, I guess. Yeah. Is that one of your guys' favorite bits? That
bit was definitely one. It did not land as a child. Or I just thought the school scene was super boring. Couldn't wait to get the more interesting parts. As an adult, I'm actually enjoying. I'm seeing the march of time as the shelves are falling, and I'm grasping who some of those statues are supposed to be, the busts on the shelf. And when he gets corrected, and the eagle has to go, "Oh, it is the British way." Yeah. As an adult, I'm like, that's actually funny. These are Americans making this movie. But yeah, definitely a joke that sails over my head as a child.
I was trying to figure out if, like, I think of when I think of capitalism and like his, nose to the grindstone mentality, like I guess there's sort of a stiff upper lip, like we are, British, like stoicism that's speaking to, that maybe like wasn't totally clicking with me, like the devotion to capitalism type of stuff. But there's the fat cat money lender top hat sort of, I guess, caricature that exists about, rich British people. So it does make some sense. But at first I was like, no, it's kind of the American way. I think you're actually right.
Yep.
So that's really good. I similarly don't totally buy. I mean, it's fun to see Fozzie and it's fun to see a Muppet party. Like, that's all fine. But just, again, I think something was cut almost out of something. It was like, we're just here for this to be a Muppet party, which is cool.
Yes.
But it didn't push much forward. I mean, we saw him go, I've been looking at the books and this party's too expensive. Like, maybe a couple other things are too expensive, or like pointing out that this guy is shaving money off because he's trying to feed his family, like something a little meaner. I thought there could have been one more scene maybe with Fozzie Wig.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I wonder if that's part of what laid the groundwork for this guy will not allow himself to enjoy anything. Even as a youth, he was party. What for? That doesn't serve a purpose.
He goes there just to meet with his boss about business stuff.
He probably wouldn't have even attended the party had he not had concerns about the finances.
Right.
Yeah, I do think they were just taking advantage of, we want to have the Swedish chef. Where do we show him at the party? Yeah. How do we get the monster to play drums? Well, we'll do them all at this event. Yeah, kind of an excuse to show off Muppet.
Yeah.
Hijinks.
And I love the Swedish Chef. I'm a big Swedish Chef guy. And even I was like, this is just gratuitously here is the Swedish Chef. Look, like just someone pointing, look, it's a Swedish Chef in a Muppet movie. Like, it's all that's happened. He wasn't worked in as some sort of British chef, or like in a situation where there even would be a chef for any reason.
Right. No, just a cameo. Just there he is.
Yeah. And that's fine. It's the Muppet version of this. And you're good to have a cameo. Absolutely. I could have used a little more. I love that middle-aged young actor that they have playing young Scrooge. Not so much that I thought he was an amazing actor. He looks so much like what I assume young Michael Caine looked like. Oh. Like, did they have his son? Like, at one point I was like, is that Michael Caine in makeup? In like super de-aging something?
Interesting.
I bought it really strongly.
There is an angelic essence to his skin. I don't know what lighting they had him under as they were filming, but he subtly glows.
He does glow a little, I wonder if it's something to do with
somehow.
The Muppet stage lighting or something, like that he just stands out compared to like all of the felt sort of characters or something.
Sure, maybe.
His skin's that much shinier. So I was really impressed by the casting at the very least there.
Yes, very much so.
At one point, and I don't know, it would have had to be, so we talked about I Love You, Belle, You Did Once, and then no response, and then that's where the song should be.
I do think you feel the abrupt cut. I mean, I grew up watching the longer version, and so I noticed right away when we'd switched to the Disney Plus version, I thought, somebody just hacked the hacked the film right here. Like they cut it with a machete. This was not gentle, thoughtful editing.
No. Yeah. So then they keep going back. They're doing this thing where I can't tell. Rizzo and Gonzo like have to physically follow him, but Gonzo still knows what's going on. It's a weird like omniscient third person narrator thing where they're like, and it's just so that there can be gags about them holding onto the rope and stuff like that. But they keep like waking up with him and stuff. Maybe my favorite line in the whole movie is when he's waiting for Ghost of Christmas Present. I think it might be like, it's like 1 a.m. It's like right in there when he's back in his room, and Rizzo goes, like the clock strikes something and Rizzo goes, okay, I wrote it down here. Is it too early for breakfast? And Gonzo just goes, yes. Like there's like no hesitation. He's just like, yeah, it's too early for breakfast. Like that's it. He just says yes. And he keeps going. I was like, that's so good. That is such good straight man stuff from Gonzo right there, which he never gets to play. No,
he doesn't. Yeah. Oh man. Favorite line. I wrote down so many quotes.
Good.
Gosh. Okay. We'll get to my favorite quote later because it kind of wraps up the whole film. But
it's still coming
right
along.
there, Ghost of Christmas Present has got to be my husband Micah's favorite line because year round he will find ways. You know your little joke with you and Hunter where you say like,
I hardly know her.
I hardly know her. Micah will try to in any situation just let out a big "come in and know me better, man." Like you can't knock on any door in our house without getting that response, no matter what month of the year it is. Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. He does say "know me better, man" several times. Yeah.
Yes, and I don't know how much the podcast audience can appreciate this, but when I first see that character, every time I watch it, I think Paul Monroe.
Oh, nice.
Jolly Giant would absolutely say that line and mean it from the bottom of his heart.
Yes, he would. The first thing that I am struck with is always Rubius Hagrid.
Oh, yes.
He's, just such a half larger than life, like barely fitting in the room sort of thing.
Yes.
So Robbie Coltrane
and just there to provide warmth and just love on whoever needs it.
Yeah, definitely a big, jolly, hearty laugh and hug.
Little
and tankards of ale. Yeah, absolutely. Very in the present, kind of thing. 100%. Yeah. I had a couple other. I felt like there was enough of a lull in plot here for me to come up with a couple of like, here's where I'm at so far things. One of which is, cannot say enough about Michael Caine here. So when we're in the Christmas Present, we're at nephew Fred's house, and they're playing 20 questions, kind of, yes or no, I think is what it's called, right? The little game. And, we know immediately that Scrooge is like so sincerely playing. And he's, oh no, I said that first. And he's like making guesses and stuff. And they're not great guesses. I mean, and also he like isn't right about some of his yeses and nos. In a way that I thought was a little weird, but he's so happy that it's happening. And then when he says, oh, you're Scrooge, and everyone's just laughing. It's like, yeah, that guy sucks. And he is wrecked.
Yes.
Like, Michael Caine did not have to go that hard, like to be like how devastated he was. Like,
yes.
Oh, like this is what I am to them, and the elation. He hadn't been that happy to feel like he was playing a game in decades, right? To go from there to him being the butt of the joke so quickly, like you can see on his face that you can't picture another actor in that, like no one could have done that as well as he did.
The devastation. Yes. He was just instantly gutted at the realization.
I thought he was going to start crying, and he doesn't, but his eyes are so red and like watery in a way that's almost more affecting.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I think you can see approaching tears in Michael Caine's eyes in more than one scene.
That, upon one brief watch, that was when I probably would have said he felt he was the most upset in my recollection of it. Because we'll get to some of the later stuff with the Christmas future, and like he's seeing his own death, and I'm like, well, yeah, I don't know, people die. Like you're really, you're seeing a headstone that has your name on it. Like you did not realize you were going to die at some point, Scrooge. And maybe that's true, and he's coming to grips with his own mortality in a way that he didn't previously realize. But that's more affecting for me, is him seeing like what people think of him than him like being sad that he's going to die.
Absolutely.
That's so human.
With Fred previously in the film, you only see Scrooge acting like, boo, you and your dumb parties. I would never even want to go.
Yeah.
So when you see him actually at the party, and he should know he's not there, but he still can't help but participate. He's like, well, gosh darn, this is fun.
Yeah, that makes it that much more
a loss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not for nothing, when Fred invites him to a party and he's like, party, you're so poor. What's Christmas ever done for you? And you go to Fred's house and it's like perfectly nice. Like he's clearly like upper middle class. Yeah.
Yes.
And you're like, Scrooge, you're just like, I guess out of touch or like wrong about what's going on with Fred's finances.
Scrooge is like Jeff Bezos. And so anything below that is like, oh, you impoverished person.
But Jeff Bezos has a yacht. Like Scrooge is Warren Buffett, I guess, is the closest comparison for
there's just loads
the
somewhere
way
that
he's
he's
choosing
not spending.
to spend his money. So.
I do love the Fred quote, the champion of the Christmas spirit, early on when he's trying to invite Scrooge to the party. And he says, even though it's never put a scrap of gold in my pocket, I believe Christmas has done me good and I'll continue to celebrate it.
Absolutely.
That's one of those lines where I think, outside of a belief system, people can get behind what this holiday does for people.
Yeah. And I think everyone can relate to, you're checking out at the store buying gifts for people and you're like, how much money am I spending actually on these gifts? But, it comes back around and that kind of aspect of it. Yeah, I think it's absolutely true. It's also at this point that I almost paused it and was like, why did they stop making these movies? And so if you'll indulge me in a little game of pitching classic books that could be adapted into Muppet films.
Yes, please. I already want to watch them without knowing which ones you picked.
So I said, why can't we do one of these 90-minute Muppet musical every 2 years? How is there not an audience for this? I guess they did a couple of them and maybe they didn't. They tried the TV show too briefly. In the 2010s, I think, or maybe the late 2000s. So here's what I came up with. Muppet Gulliver's Travels.
Oh,
Who says
absolutely.
No? Easy. Big one. You got your big ones. You got your little ones. You cast Timothée Chalamet as Gulliver and everyone else is a Muppet. Right? Fun. Maybe he's a little young. You cast Benedict Cumberbatch. I'm just going to cast Benedict Cumberbatch, Timothée Chalamet and everything.
Chalamet's about to do Willy Wonka. If he can do Willy Wonka, he can do Gulliver.
He's got to be, I'm assuming that's like a young Willy Wonka though, right?
Oh.
That's like pre-Gene Wilder. He's not trying to be the same age as Gene Wilder is.
Oh, I assumed he was doing Gene Wilder. I did.
Wow. I'm intrigued.
I believe he's doing full
A
Wonka.
very important film from my childhood as well. That was one that maybe we owned. The Willy Wonka the Chocolate Factory. And the scariest scene I've still ever seen in a film when they are on the river. Yeah. And the chicken gets his head cut off. What are we doing?
The chicken.
That's in one of the film projection things.
Okay.
Yes. So they're like, what's going on here?
Yes.
Okay. So we got Muppet Gulliver's Travels, Muppet Moby Dick.
Oh, yes. Probably anything that was done by Wishbone. You could do with Muppets.
Muppet Frankenstein. Yep. The Last of the Mupp-Heekins.
Oh, absolutely. Get a punny name going. Yep. Please.
They're Little Muppet Women. Who says no to like a little, or Pride and Prejudice?
I want it. I want something like that. Pride and Prejudice was the one I was thinking.
Maybe even more.
Yes, let's get
them in dresses and stuff. I mean, Miss Piggy, you got Kermit in like a 3-piece suit all the time for some reason.
Kermit wears a tricorn hat in Treasure Island. We know he looks good in it.
It's no problem. Muppet Family Robinson?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
that's another classic childhood movie of mine.
I feel like that fits really well into Treasure Island.
It does.
Swiss Family Robinson, and then Robinson Crusoe, maybe. The Muppet. Oh, if the last one is just the Muppet and it's the Hobbit, but it's Muppets. Yeah.
How about a Muppet Hamilton?
Oh, wow.
If you're going to do a musical.
You go modern and you're just doing Hamilton and Kermit is playing Hamilton.
Yep.
But then do they still recycle characters like how the actors play multiple characters?
I think you have to. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
I've only seen Hamilton the one time. I'm not like super knowledgeable about it, but that's interesting. I was trying to think of stuff that's like borderline public domain, like just older stuff that Warner Bros. Isn't putting the kibosh on the rights to. I mean, they're never going to get like something like The Hobbit. That doesn't really work, but. So
speaking of owning a few VHSs as children, very off topic from Christmas Carol, but we owned a movie called, oh gosh. Well, now I'm thinking of The Music Man, which would be super fun to see with Muppets.
Yes, The Muppet Man.
The Yankee Doodle Dandy.
Okay, I don't know Yankee Doodle Dandy, I don't think.
It's about George M. Cohan, which I think your family's musical nerdy history would get very into.
Yeah.
You would probably recognize some of the songs that he has written in there. But yeah, that's so old. It was a VHS we inherited from my grandma. So I only watched it because we weren't allowed to watch TV. So it's there. Let's do it. But yeah, that would be a fun one to kind of bring back into cultural zeitgeist via the Muppets, because who else is watching something like that?
Is it like set around 1776? Like it's like a Star Spangled thing, or?
No, it's set at like the height of Broadway musical theater.
Oh.
But the guy, it's about his family kind of up and coming from rags to riches almost of we're struggling artists who can't quite make it on the scene to now I'm writing hit songs that are in every musical. And so he himself was born on the 4th of July. So he's the Yankee Doodle boy.
Yeah.
And so he has a song called I'm this Yankee Doodle Dandy that he sings and whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, an enjoyable musical. And it's about real history. George M. Cohan really was a prolific Broadway writer. So yeah.
No reason that can't be Muppets.
No reason.
There's no reason.
Absolutely not.
They can't be the world's most expensive films to make. I mean, if you cut out, there were like a lot of cameos in the 2 live action, I guess, Muppet movies from the Jason Segel was in. So you cut out some of that stuff and just make it more Muppety and cast the 1 star.
Right.
Like this seems like a formula.
Yes.
To me.
Yes. Why can't you just apply
There's got to be nostalgia for it.
Oh my goodness.
People our age are having kids and stuff.
Oklahoma. I don't know how you do Judd's Dead with Muppets.
True.
But maybe you lighten it up.
Here.
Maybe you don't make it.
I think characters die in Muppet. Well, it's not violently. Yeah. Well, some of the Judd stuff is a little like rapey overtones, right? Is kind of the deal with that.
Muppets may not be the ideal vehicle for that story.
Yeah. But you just changed the kind of that part of it for some reason. Absolutely. Yeah. Let's get some more Muppet movies.
I'm on board.
Whoever owns Muppets, NBC, Universal. So we have, I didn't realize the whole time. I didn't realize that I was missing Miss Piggy. I'd forgotten. I wasn't thinking the whole time, like, when's Miss Piggy going to show up? Yeah. Wasn't happening for me. Not that wasn't pleased to see Miss Piggy, and it didn't immediately lock. Of course, Miss Piggy is, and there's baby piggies. I do like that the girls are piggies and the boy is Kermit.
The boy is a frog.
There's no mixing. There's no blending.
No.
Like the Punnett Square did not happen here. They just went
boys are frogs, girls are pigs. Yes. Did you take a science class?
Absolutely. Well, it's first grade SpongeBob. So that's good, and she's good, and the family is just like perfectly endearing. And this is my favorite song. And it's not even a full song, but I remember being a favorite, but I couldn't like do it for you right now. It's Kermit and with Tiny Tim on his shoulder walking down the street. Yeah. And he's just like, he's like doing harmonies. Yeah.
Oh,
and it's so good. It's just like absolutely like bops along, and that's when I noticed whoever's playing Kermit is doing the Kermit voice and also harmonizing. Yes. And I'm like, this is just so cool.
Oh man.
They're just showing off. Like that's all that little scene was.
Yes, absolutely.
So I really enjoyed that.
I'll forgive you for not loving all the other songs I love as much, because that one is good. You're right. Yeah,
that's my personal, and that's just maybe like, I like the up-tempo. I mean, it's all pretty up-tempo, but that's just, I love that one. They really nail. This is when I'm really starting to realize that I'm getting not like I'm not crying, but like it's really working. Tiny Tim was at church and everyone just was blessed by his presence. And
isn't that speech so good?
All of that kind of stuff.
I thought it would help people to see to remember the one who made lame men walk and blind men see. And and
that's as Christian as it gets. I think we peak at the level of, that's where we hit the top of how Christian any message in the movie, which is interesting too. And I don't know if it's, Michael, you keep coming back to Michael Caine's face, just like realizing how sweet of a little kid, and that he's the one holding the purse strings, preventing this kid from getting like an actual turkey leg for dinner and that kind of stuff. Yes. So I think that's helping. Seeing his reaction is informing my reaction to some extent at that point. It's really good.
I appreciate that. It's very ahistorical, the lines they let Miss Piggy have, but when she gets to kind of vent a little bit into Michael Caine's face there at the end, that he should get some sort of comeuppance for everything because she doesn't realize he's there to offer generosity and whatever this time. She could not have gotten away with that in the time period. But since it's a Muppet
just
movie,
been slapped, woman, and
it's big emotions, Miss Piggy, we're going to let her have this moment. I enjoyed that. Not that post interchange Michael Caine needs that, but as an audience member, you appreciate, sometimes you just want to yell that at the people who are holding other people back.
And she had been restrained up to that point. I mean, she like stops herself from talking bad about him, and they lets her do the toast, and then later is like holding back her tears and is like trying to stay composed and stuff in a way that you don't normally associate with this Piggy. So they have to let loose a little bit there at the end. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, they're really trying to ride the crest. Like after they introduce Tiny Tim, and then it's like, all right, now you guys are gonna be sad about Tiny Tim. We're gonna try to milk it for like 25 minutes, and it started to dip a little bit for me. But I really enjoyed all the stuff with the family. I did at this point think that maybe one other actor could have done this in my estimation, and that'd be Alan Rickman. Just when you see some of the stuff, like, I mean, his eye, the way that he's able to act with his eyes to go from like blank to like the feeling in them, could have kind of, because it's just, Michael Caine's mostly just reacting to things. You're mostly watching him watch stuff happen. There's
a presence Michael Caine brings with him that provides gravitas to what is otherwise completely ridiculous. What are these puppets doing with a classic piece of literature? And I think Alan Rickman also brings gravitas to anything that he is in. 100% agree with that.
I think he could have done that. That's the only other name that came to mind that I could see doing it.
Have you heard Alan Rickman sing?
I think. Oh, okay. We're gonna have to Google this. I think there was a musical that was he was in.
Really?
Alan Rickman musical.
Obviously, his voice is luscious to listen to in speaking.
Is he in Sweeney Todd?
I do not know.
Known for his distinctive, deep, languid voice.
Such a good word.
Die Hard the musical. Was Alan Rickman on Broadway? He played the Vicomte de Valmont of Les Liaisons Dangereuses in 1985. Nominated for a Tony. Who plays Snape on Broadway? That's a totally different question.
Ooh.
This might be harder to Google than I would have thought that it would, because it's just wanting to give me his whole biography and stuff. So we might have to, listeners, if you're thinking of an Alan Rickman musical, feel free to call in and let us know. Oh, I'm realizing that Jess always says what the phone number is, and I don't know what our call-in phone number is. So we're going to have Jeremy put it in the show notes. You can just swipe over on your podcast app and you'll see it right there and click it. Please feel free to call or text. And this is kind of, people say that listening to a podcast, when you know the thing, it's like being as close as you can get to being a ghost, which is they're yelling, no, Alan Rickman was in, Les Mis in the run in the 90s or something, and we just aren't realizing it. But we'd love to hear from you about that.
Podcasters who are yelling right now, you're totally right. We should listen better.
We should. Just come to my house when we are recording. I think Ghost of Christmas Present is stealing the film a little bit when he's aging like really hard out of the Cratchit house into they go to a graveyard, or he's getting him towards a graveyard or something.
He's sort of disappearing as he hands him off to
and he's aging, and his hair, his long hair is getting gray and stuff. He's got those big old sausage fingers that are like stealing. There's so much emotion in those weird sausage fingers somehow. He's putting them on Scrooge's shoulder and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yes, you definitely feel the sadness of he brought so much joy. He brought so much warmth, and you can feel that seeping away as his character is changing. And you obviously, unless you're the child watching this, you know what comes next in A Christmas Carol. You know darker and sadder stuff is coming. And probably how we all feel taking the Christmas decorations down at the end of the Christmas seasons. Oh, there it all goes.
It's the personification, or this is one of the only words I struggle with in English, anthropomorphization of that kind of Sunday scaries feeling of like, oh, the weekend is ending, the weekend's dying, like I'm gonna have to go back to school or back to work or whatever, that everyone can relate to. And like you're seeing that happen on screen, and he knows it's happening, just like we know that Monday is coming,
Yeah, absolutely. All that comes in January is go back to work, go back to school, start a diet. No more Christmas lights.
Exactly. Christmas is that fleeting, the pitch kind of that he does is, I think, he somehow visually portrays that really well. Okay, and then we go to Christmas Future. And I'm borderline distracted because I can't figure out what Muppet is supposed to be playing the Ghost of Christmas Future.
Does it bother you so much that the body is disproportionate and you can't quite figure out, does he not have legs?
Right.
Is like a waist stump resting on the ground right now?
Because of the way it's like cut, that you only see like the hood robe parts.
Yeah.
It's just that like I wanted it to be a Muppet that I knew. There's that one Muppet that's really tall, that's like sort of like the monster from Where the Wild Things Are. Just like a big guy. I can picture him in Muppet Treasure Island. who's just being a big Muppet guy. And I just thought that was who it was going to be. I mean, he's not skinny. They kind of want more of a Grim Reaper.
Yes,
and they don't shape Muppets that way, but.
Yeah, so I don't know what they did there.
It's not a person, and it's not really a Muppet.
Right? Is there a Muppet you would know that we just can't see under this black cloak, or is it just like a claymation cloak because they didn't want to make a Muppet seem scary for a
Could they have maybe shown me a few Muppets sitting on their each other's shoulders, like kids in a trench coat at one point to for a piece of levity? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe that might have been too much.
Yeah, just because then does that rob the moment of he's not the creepy harbinger of death?
Yeah.
It's those two funny Muppets.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So there's the scene of the pigs talking about how happy they are that Scrooge is dead.
Yes.
But then without naming him. And I'm a little distracted. I'm distracted very much by one thing, which is minor, which is that it's raining. Michael Caine isn't getting wet, which I think is good because he's not there. He's disembodied. This is a portent thing. And I'm like, how are they doing that? Because it seems like it's raining.
Yeah.
It's like a green screen thing. I was very impressed by it. But also, isn't he taking kind of a long time to realize they're talking about him? If we just say Ghost Christmas Past, Ghost Christmas Present, he doesn't really get it. You're supposed to be shocked when he realizes it's him on the gravestone. Like they were making it very clear. They showed your pillowcase, like during the thieves scene. So do you have a take on that?
Well, I have trouble deciding when he knew.
Right.
Because it seems like he drops a couple of lines almost, okay, future, I see how this could be me.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, come on.
And I'm like, okay, at that point, does he know? Yeah. Like, oh, sure, these sheets look like sheets I would own. That funeral they're describing sounds like a funeral that could be mine. I totally just saw my tombstone.
I know those guys who were talking about someone they know dying.
Yeah. I'm not sure when it clicked for him.
And I think that's my problem is that either way, I want to know that it clicked.
Yes.
Because otherwise I feel like it clicked. And then later I'm supposed to be like, oh, it's clicking now.
Now he gets
like, you kind of already robbed me because I was sort of looking for that big emotion Michael Caine's face the first time that I think it should have clicked, you know? Yes, you don't want to make it not believable that it would take him this long, right? They made it too obvious or they should have just let him have it there. Something like that. So, and then, I mean, can we talk about Tiny Tim loved watching the ducks on the river? Like an absolute killer line.
Absolutely. That line has made me consider where would I bury various loved ones of mine so that when I'm near their grave saying goodbye, reminiscing, I'm also seeing something they would have appreciated. I mean, this movie makes you renegotiate your relationship with loss.
Absolutely. Now, do you have any personal history with graveyards, like playing in them as a kid, or there's any that have specific emotional significance to you? Do you picture these things happening?
Many people who played in graveyards as kids?
Me and my brother?
Okay.
Is that abnormal?
Yes.
Is that weird? Okay, so I'm from Crawfordsville, Indiana, as some of you listeners may know, maybe familiar with. There is a large cemetery in not the middle of town, but like right in town that has like pretty busy roads on two sides of it. So you're passing it constantly, and you can just about like almost see the other side. But I mean, it's deep. And it's kind of like up on a hill, and so it's not creepy. It's just like that's what's there. And so in 5th grade, we moved across the street from it. Like directly across the street from it. So like from at least parts of our front yard, you could just walk across the street and climb up the hill and you're straight into
open
it.
Space.
So we're just over there like hitting bouncy balls with baseball bats and having the dogs chase them. Or my dad would do the game where he's like, find a gravestone with the death date is 1892 or whatever. And so we're just kind of running around. There's not really trees. I mean, there are some in the middle. There's a few trees, but it's not spotted with trees. And there's a bunch of hills or like a cave. There's not like a lot of big weird mausoleums things, just kind of a bunch of headstones, and it's pretty, and it's where, you know, we knew people that like we had an older neighbor that we were close to they'd had a plot there for years, and that's where he was buried, and so it's like, okay, that's where Bob is, of course it is. And so I maybe have a different relationship to this that I'm realizing right now than a lot of people. Maybe.
I think that might be a healthier attitude, maybe a little bit more a la what is the holiday
Dia de los Muertos.
Dia de los Muertos. Nice. My brain was telling me Cinco de Mayo, and I was like, don't say it, Betsey. Don't embarrass yourself. El Dia de los Muertos, like of course we want to remember those people or, be around them even though they're gone or whatever. As a kid, I think I very much saw graveyards as a very solemn place. Almost anything you say or do in a graveyard could be construed as disrespectful.
Wow.
Like tighten it up.
I have knocked, the sausage like shaped ones that are sort of sitting on, like they're low.
Yes.
I've knocked them off of the grave and then had to go get friends to help me pick it up and put it back on because it was too heavy for me at 12 years old to put back on.
Oh my gosh.
But I knew I had to put it back on. That's the only point where I was like, I didn't mean to do it. It's not like we were playing with it or something. We're just running and
let's find out what happens when we kick them. Yeah.
Right. It wasn't that. And we knew we needed to do it and we went and got it done. That was like, I feel a little bad that I did that to that person's grave, but also they're not bothered by it,
We used to have a dairy dip within walking distance of our home.
Okay.
Like a little, not a chain Dairy Queen.
Yep, great.
Right?
We had Dairylicious, so I get it.
There you go.
Yep.
And the parking lot for Dairy Dip where we would sit and eat our ice cream after we'd walked there was right next to a, cast iron fence or what have you with a graveyard behind it. And it always felt a little disrespectful to me that we were eating ice cream and enjoying ourselves that close to people who could not do those things.
I have sat in a tree in that graveyard and watched the fireworks on 4th of July.
Oh.
Like maybe with like an icy pop or something.
Yeah.
So
just flaunting
that's a tree that's kind of up on a hill that we could sort of see the fireworks from.
Look at all the things I can do that you cannot, folks below me.
Never once entered my mind that thought.
You probably shouldn't think that at age 12.
Yeah. So, and then also here in Warsaw, when we lived on Main Street, we're just 2 blocks from it's not Oak Hill, Oakwood, a gorgeous cemetery, especially once you get back into the back and there is like a drop off hill at one point and there's some going up. And we used to go and walk through there or ride our bikes through it, like on the way to go to Pike Lake or something. Okay. And there's like a cool back entrance to it. Have you been to that?
I think so.
Over on the Pike Lake side?
Yes. Yeah. Would you run into other people there or did you have the place to yourself?
No, there were other people mostly like older people doing their walking routine or in joggers, like power walking through or something like that.
Fun fact, I was part of a group of adults back when I worked at Lakeview that did an after-school club activity that had a lot of Hispanic and Latino students in it.
Okay.
We went and raked leaves at the cemeteries, like a local, let's help out our community, whatever.
Yeah.
Very hard sell for Latino parents.
Interesting.
With all of their superstitious beliefs. Yeah. To allow their kids to come to the cemetery.
They're bringing eggs for some reason.
What'd you say?
They're bringing eggs, the malojo thing.
I did not see eggs.
Spitballing.
Some kids had to have garlic in their pockets.
Wow. And sincerely, just like this is what's going to happen.
Mom's like, if you're going to go, you're going with garlic in your pockets. And some of the kids said as soon as they got home, their parents made them change their clothes and shower because they didn't want any dead spirits to have clung to them.
Wow.
You're not bringing that home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was not my upbringing.
They were not watching the fireworks from a tree inside the graveyard on the 4th of July.
No. When Rachel and I talk now about should we have already put down payments on plots or is that the kind of thing we want to do or is it just like a cremation situation?
Yeah.
That's the only place I could picture actively wanting to be buried, I think would be in the back farther corner where there's a little more hilliness and there's some trees almost overlooking Pike Lake. Not that I've have a ton of experience swimming in Pike Lake. I took the dogs there a few times, or George at least, but
just the views.
It's just really pretty.
You've walked there and you appreciate that.
Yeah,
interesting.
It's just pretty.
So not Crawfordsville. You don't want to be buried where you watch the fireworks.
So that I don't know how many plots are. I mean, that one's pretty full, and it's a very finite. There's houses on this side, streets on the other.
We're not expanding.
Yeah, it's not an expanding thing. Now that's Oak Hill, and then that's Oak Hill South, and then there's an Oak Hill. Shoot, it's either west maybe. Oak Hill West. There's another I don't know why they have the same name. It's owned by the same thing. That's where my grandparents are buried. Is at the other one, and there's a little more. That one's just a little more out not in the country, but on the edge of town. There's just more room and stuff. So I guess that would be. I probably have family members that have plans on being buried there. I guess on my mom's side, so that'd be the only other even option. But for me and Rachel, this is where we've live. Right. This is really where we've made our family's home.
I feel like I'm putting down roots here, and I would probably rather do something here than go to places older relatives I may have never met are buried.
Yeah. So anyway, Tiny Tim gets married where he can look over at the ducks. You're right, though.
It's a killer line.
It kills you. Absolutely.
Gosh.
And so then I think, my next note is just that the ending doesn't quite have the hammer for me, because he goes just back to the same graveyard. He's at the same graveyard, right? And sees his headstone again. And he's like, no, spirit, no. And I'm like, what exactly are you asking for, Scrooge? Like, you're not going to stop yourself from eventually dying. And maybe I just have a weird relationship with death in that way, just being very comfortable about, like, that's what old people do. Like, I'm sorry you were close to your grandma, absolutely. And then I just am not going to grieve for as long, because I'm like, I don't know what exactly eventually, like, and I know that sounds really callous. And so I like actively tried to not like go directly there or something. I was, consoling a kid the other day who like kind of broke down in class about, I just found out last night my grandma died. I'm like, that is super sad. And like, I am so sorry. And I am sad for him. And I'm just kind of thinking while we're doing it, like, I was not that sad. Like, I just don't get that sad about that kind of stuff. So, I might just not be the right person for this message.
I definitely think it depends on the relationship.
Yeah.
Micah and I were just having this conversation about, I finished a lady's memoir where she talked about losing her father, and not that she had a total psychotic break, but a little bit of that, the grief took over and she wasn't really thinking, and she like tried to chase the hearse for a while. She was having so much trouble saying goodbye. She like physically ran after his body being taken away. And I was talking with Mike about how I did not anticipate having that relationship with, if I lose either of my parents, but I think part of grief too is the immensity of the relationship.
Right.
I was not close to my grandparents as we have lost them.
Same thing.
Those were just funerals for older strangers I was going to as a child. I think for me, that expression, you feel like an orphan when your parents die, no matter what age you are. I do think I will feel that way when I start to lose my siblings. I felt in a larger way raised and mentored by my older siblings.
And that's a big family thing for you to some extent, right? I've got the one brother, and so I wouldn't go there. Obviously, I will be devastated if and when he dies, unless Christ comes before that, I guess. But yeah, for you, that's so much more concrete. I wasn't raised by him by any means, so.
Right, yeah. And I think now I would have that relationship with Micah as well. We've built so much together in the 14 years we've known each other. All of that leaves in a hearse with him someday. There's a lot to grieve there. If you don't have that big of a relationship, no, a goodbye can be quicker, if nothing else, maybe even seeming colder to someone else who's not you. But
yeah. That's Muppet Christmas Carol. I mean,
man,
right?
I know, we're discussing death.
I guess we have the final climb back up the hill, right? Where it's, boy, what day is it? And and that's the stuff. That's
Tiny
kind of
Tim,
that dopamine
who
rush.
Did not die. Yeah, you get that whole
plot twist. Yeah, which is tough because it's like, obviously, I knew the Christmas Carol story, which almost everyone does before watching any given movie. You've seen some version of it, so you're not like, what? He's not dead? Like that kind of thing. You don't really get that.
That stuff didn't really happen?
Yeah.
Right.
I thought, I like, how happy he is and he's singing. Everyone, there's a couple things. There's a quick turnaround. Yes. Like, great, Scrooge is nice now. And I'm in. We're in on it. We're in on Scrooge being nice now. There's no skepticism at all.
It's like no questions asked with the Muppets, or the spirits showing up. Oh, he's awesome now? Done. Yeah. Great. He can party with us.
Dozens of people on the street just now following him like the Pied Piper. So that was a little odd.
Pied Piper is a great example, though.
I wanted him to go and take the dinner to the Cratchits and kind of eat it with them. I didn't necessarily want... And maybe he brings a couple people that we'd connected with. I don't necessarily know that I wanted him to bring in dozens.
The whole town.
People. Yeah, and then packed, shoulder to shoulder along the street as far as the eye can see. I was like, this is maybe it's just a me thing. I would be overwhelmed by the number of people being brought in here. But I think it would have been a little more emotionally relevant if it's like, hey, I need to do my apologies and it's me sitting down eating with you guys. You're the people that
I'm here to repair harm I have done. Here's me and 30 strangers. I literally don't even know these people's names, but they're coming in and they're going to eat some of your food.
And maybe that's supposed to be like, I love everyone now. Maybe. I've done a complete 180 on the whole thing. But it almost, you wouldn't think that after how sad some of the other stuff was, how well Michael Caine's doing, they could get to where I would say cheesy, like on that end of it. I mean, it's a Muppet movie. Like they just turned the dial to 12.
Yes.
Like I maybe could have done with like a 10.5. Like it's a little over the top.
I'll accept that criticism. Absolutely. Yeah. Especially someone who I feel very strongly about not mixing friend groups.
Yes.
Or if you do mix friend groups, so delicately. Yes. I prep people.
You're prepping on both sides and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Oh,
that's what I wish people would. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And 100%. I don't invite people to things unless I can tell them, and here's who all will be there so that they can anticipate appropriately.
And obviously this is the musical denouement of a movie, and it's just singing and joining in. And it's not like he invited people and like things were thought out. It's just, let's get as many Muppets as we can on the screen at one time at the end, which is fine. I'm also struck with a little like, so Scrooge just is, I don't know how to put it. He has all this money. He's just pouring money out, buying everything, handing money to people. And I'm like, well, eventually you can't just do that for forever. Like he will run out of that money and will not be able to be just infinitely generous to everyone unless maybe he is truly like a billionaire. Right. I guess maybe
funds he couldn't spend with his remaining years.
Yeah. It doesn't seem, I don't know. I think that would be a stretch, right? Like it's truly unlimited money. And then, so I'm like, now we're actually kind of happy that Scrooge has all this money that he did successfully save up, so now he can use it in a good way. Like the messaging there got a little like that he's just handing out money. It's not so much about like, I love you now. There's not like acts of service that he's doing. I wanted him to, I guess, state like apologies to people. And that could be a thing I have about apologies, like rooted in my like childhood, which is a real thing. But that
you like a verbal own up to what you did.
Yes. Yeah. That's important for me, like in real life to get, like to have that like conversational closure, like the words of it and stuff. So maybe I wanted him to do more of that than just like literally throwing money at everyone, everything we're acting like the money is what is saving this, it's solving this problem.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
So yeah, my parents always used the structure. I was wrong for fill in the blank. Will you please forgive me? It would be interesting to hear this Michael Caine version of what did he think it was that Scrooge did wrong. You see him buy the bigger baskets of coal for his bookkeepers. Which
is wild. I don't know. I didn't like that.
Really?
Yeah. Because I want him to just like make it so they don't have to work. Like just like give them money. Like, yeah, I want him to... A bigger basket of coal is like, now you can be warmer when still doing the work that you've been doing for me and I was mean to you during, that you don't love. It's not a passion of yours to be a bookkeeper. I'm just anti-work.
Yeah, too. Maybe. This sounds like you don't love your job right now, Rogge.
Jobs. I don't like the idea of having a job, I think is a problem.
No, I read that as...
he listened to you. He cared about
better
he heard
work
you.
Conditions, right? I'm not going to continue to abuse you. Maybe now you will love your job.
I want to see what their benefits package looks like, more than...
They get vacation time now. We're not bargaining anymore to get Christmas Day off.
It's like, it's a little bit like... the thing where you've had a rough couple of months at this job, maybe it's been a rough semester, and then your boss throws a pizza party and you're like, that fixed it.
Yeah.
When you're like, well, we've been talking about compensation for like a while now.
Yes.
And then maybe I'm just so cynical and I'm the person who is kind of like, you guys are all like, oh, everything's fine. They threw a pizza party. Like you can't, let's not compromise these Santas we've been taking in order to just accept the pizza now. Absolutely. Where like, actually it's bigger than the pizza. Like don't let if you accept the pizza and are like, everything is forgiven, then you no longer have any leverage. They'll be like, oh, I thought the pizza was fine. I thought you were fine with the pizza. You were
happy with pizza last time.
That's super cynical of me.
Oh, no,
because I do love pizza.
Up. This is not an anti-pizza podcast.
We're
That's
pizza.
not the message. No, that made me very proud at our former place of work where we both were employed. When there was a meeting I did not appreciate about test scores, and I was not buying the whole package of what they thought that test was selling, what it said about our students and our work with our students. But there had been some sort of incremental increase somewhere in one of those pieces of data. So they were trying to sell us on believe this data, buy what it says. Look, it said this one teeny tiny good thing about you in one area. Woohoo, let's have an ice cream party.
I remember the ice cream party in the computer lab.
Yes.
Yes.
Because at the end, as soon as the meeting was over and it was clear that we were no longer required to stay in the room, everyone left and no one ate ice cream. I was like, I am proud of us for how we handled that.
Yeah.
You eat your ice cream.
Yeah, you don't want to debase yourself by acting like this is all I needed to make this right, which is very high level. I mean, it's very 1,000-foot view of it, because in the moment they bought the ice cream. The ice cream's going to just go to waste. You know what I mean? Like, so there's a lot of temptation to just be like, I deserve this and more. And that's great. But you're like trying to show your, like, with your actions, and maybe they'll listen to me. If I'm not even eating ice cream, they know I'm taking this seriously. This is a big thing for me at my last place of employment. It was a lot of pizza parties, a lot of, our boss's boss sent 24 cookies, just Kroger, on their way in, stopped and grabbed Kroger cookies. Other people are like eating them. And I would remonstrated. Like, if I kind of was like, okay, they brought us store-bought cookies. Like, I have lots of points that I would like them to address. And Rachel's like, well, people like cookies, and like, oh, this person might have heard you say that you didn't love the cookies they brought. I'm like, am I the crazy one here? Like, isn't this bigger than cookies? Like, are we mollified by cookies? And maybe we are. Maybe some of us are.
I don't know.
And this has nothing to do with a movie that I loved. I really enjoyed Muppet Christmas Carol.
So glad you enjoyed it.
I like a kids movie that can make me think about these things and feel strongly about these ways and bring up these topics. I think there's nothing wrong with that. And it's not me being mad about the way late stage capitalism works is not an indictment on a Muppet Christmas Carol. Other than I do wish there were more Muppet movies. That's the part of capitalism I don't like.
That's the only criticism. Right? Let's do more musicals.
There's no reason we can't have more Muppet musicals. Specifically Muppet musicals. I didn't see In the Heights.
I haven't
the second Lin-Manuel Miranda joint after Hamilton, I didn't even see the latest. What was the latest live action Disney singing one? Was it Cinderella?
Oh, gracious. They've done so many live action. I did see Beauty and the Beast.
I didn't see Little Mermaid. I didn't see Aladdin. I wanted it to be a Muppet musical, I guess is what I'm saying.
I did see Little Mermaid. I did see Aladdin. I did see Lion King. Have they done other ones?
Lion King, I kind of saw at the drive-in, but I was getting popcorn the whole time. The drive-in in Plymouth where the line gets really, really long? Have you ever been to that one?
No, I've not.
Sometimes you can wait in line for an hour for popcorn. Oh, wow. It's insane. They have like one person back there, and they do like pizzas and ice cream and
my goodness,
40 other things. And it's like, I'm just trying to get a bucket of popcorn for $18.
So you can miss most of a movie just getting your popcorn refill.
Yeah. So this is definitely a movie that I would be happy to. I could see this being the second movie that I watch every Christmas. Right now, it's jumped to number 2. It's Wonderful Life, and it's going to take a lot to pass It's a Wonderful Life for me. It's Wonderful Life is like the one time every year I'm guaranteed to cry. Wow. Like it's Wonderful Life is up there for me, and so it's me seeing this at age 32 for the first time. It's going to be tough to climb that mountain, but I really liked it, and I could see myself watching it every December.
Oh, I'm very happy with that. If you came out with a bunch of criticisms, I would be disappointed. But
oh no,
straight to number 2. Yeah, I will take it.
I think so.
There are so many good Christmas movies, so it doesn't have to be number 1 for everyone. I'll allow as long as it's your top 5.
This was I was ready for another Muppet movie. It's been a while since I've seen any of them. I have such a deep fondness for the Treasure Island one, which is the same thing but based around Tim Curry, who's a perfect person to be he's 2/3 Muppet himself already. So that's really great. I was ready. I liked, it was like the warm embrace of Kermit singing songs and making his scrunched up Kermit faces. Like I was ready. Yeah. I was an absolute mark for this movie. One of my
favorite parts of the whole movie is right at the beginning. I think it's before they introduce Ebenezer Scrooge. But there was kids singing on a corner choir, and the one kid gets punched in the face by something. I forget if it's a snowball or he gets hit by a cymbal or something, and his whole face just up. It's hilarious. That gets me every single time. I look forward to that one little bit.
Yeah. It never fails to impress me how good the puppeteers are for these Muppets.
They're so good.
It is insane the amount of emotion they're able to put on they don't blink. They don't have eyes that can open and close.
Yes.
And what is portraying emotion silently on a human face, if not like eyes that are able to be expressive?
Right.
But somehow Kermit is expressive.
Very much so.
So it's always very impressive. Never, ever doubt the artistry that goes into those puppeteering or Muppeteering jobs or whatever they're called. So very impressive.
Favorite quote. Okay. I almost didn't come back to it. Wherever you find love, it feels like Christmas.
Oh,
it's one of the lyrics.
Yep.
I have these little chalkboard signs in our front hallway, and I used to swap out quotes and things like that on them. And once I put on there, wherever you find love, it feels like Christmas. I wrote it on, there's a Christmas quote, and then months just kept going by, and I kept looking at it thinking, that feeling should be generated year round by various kind, selfless, things we do. And so I've just left it. It's been up there in our hallway for years.
That's awesome. So it has to be your favorite quote.
Has to be.
Absolutely. If you guys have favorite quotes from Muppet Christmas Carol, if you have thoughts on the impact of late stage capitalism on the lives of small town Indiana public school teachers, we would love to hear about them. Please vote in the poll if you're listening on Spotify. Would you watch Muppet Christmas Carol again? That's probably going to be on there. Would watch. I thought it was very whimsical, and I love that about it. Whimsy's a big thing here on Flabbergasted.
Off the charts on whimsy.
Whimsy, high quotient of whimsy. Please follow us on Instagram at Flabberpod, I think. I'm not going to correct myself if that's not the name of our handle. We always appreciate ratings, 5-star ratings and reviews and follows and so forth on your podcast medium of choice. And if you have new movies you would like us to consider in the future, or what your favorite Christmas movies are, please let us know. And call us at the number that Jeremy has so graciously, that's the word, provided on the show notes here. Let's give a big round of applause. Thank you to Vasti for coming on. So much fun. Did you enjoy your maiden voyage on Flabbergasted?
I very much enjoyed it. It helps that it was one of my all-time favorite movies.
Good.
So
that'll do it.
This was pure joy, and it's already getting me kicked off for the holiday season coming up.
Ooh, a little early. Let's do Thanksgiving. We've got Friendsgiving and Thanksgiving, so we got some fun ones coming up. Stay tuned for more films that you just can't believe we haven't watched. Bye, guys.